For minutes on a road changed everything for Tanzania, built without a single borrowed dollar. Could this be Africa's new future? Like it, share it, and hit subscribe for more powerful stories like this. I stand before you today as your president, proud to open the John Paul Magufuli Bridge, a promise we made to ourselves, built by us, for us, with no debt and no delays. A brand new bridge now stretches across Lake Victoria in Tanzania, an impressive 3.2 kilometers from one end to the other. Every shilling for this project came from Tanzania itself. No foreign loans, no donor aid, no outside handouts. This is now the longest bridge in East and Central Africa, and it's turning heads everywhere. People are asking, how did Tanzania pull this off alone? Why now? And what changes will this bring to Africa today? We'll break down the full story. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody expected it to be so massive or finished so quickly. But on June 19, 2025, as the sun rose over Lake Victoria, thousands of Tanzanians gathered at the water's edge, standing shoulder to shoulder. They looked out across the lake. From the morning mist, the bridge emerged, a giant spine of steel and concrete stretching far into the distance. There were no fireworks, no loud celebrations. It didn't need them. The sight alone was enough to fill hearts with pride. Children climbed onto rooftops to get a better view. Market traders abandoned their stalls. Even local fishermen, some who had never left their villages, came to watch as the first cars crossed in Tanzania. Big projects like this usually take years, often stalling or dragging on. But this one felt different, as if time itself had sped up. The John Paul Magufuli Bridge was once just an idea buried in a city planning file. Now it's real, it's strong, and it belongs to everyone. What makes this moment even greater is not just the scale of the bridge, but the change it brings. Before, only water separated the two sides. People relied on ferries that were slow, unreliable, and often dangerous. That's history now. Before the bridge, people could spend hours waiting in long lines for the ferry. Some days the lake was calm, other days the water was rough, and the crossing was slow, uncomfortable, and unpredictable. Then everything changed. One day, people were stuck out on the water, losing precious time. The next, they were driving across in minutes. Windows rolled down, music playing, smiles on their faces, waving goodbye to years of delays and frustration. The media quickly rushed to capture the moment. TV crews, reporters, and photographers crowded the scene. Even seasoned journalists, who had covered countless major events, struggled to put it into words. Some called it an African engineering marvel. Others described it as almost too perfect, as if it had been planned in secret. One foreign reporter admitted, "I thought this kind of project only happened in places like Asia or Europe, not here. Not now, but it did happen, and it happened in Tanzania, not in the well-known cities like Dar es Salaam or Arusha, but in the Lake Zone, an area often overlooked that made the achievement feel even more special, as if the quiet corners of the country had suddenly stepped into the spotlight. On the opening morning, thousands gathered at the lakeshore. A cool mist hung in the air, softening the edges of the massive bridge that seemed to rise out of the water. Like the back of a great steel creature, people stood in awe, full of pride and joy. Children waved from rooftops. Market traders left their stalls. Fishermen, who usually spent their days far from shore, stood silent, watching history unfold. As the first cars rolled across, there were no fireworks or blasting speakers. None were needed. The bridge's sheer size and presence spoke louder than any celebration. In a country where new infrastructure is rare and often delayed, this felt like a leap into the future. The name John Paul Magufuli Bridge spread quickly across Tanzania. Conversations buzzed with pride. The days of slow, unreliable ferries were suddenly over. No more long waits, no more broken-down boats. Now, cars and trucks could glide across in minutes. The wind in their hair, music filling the air, leaving the old way of crossing as nothing more than a memory. Journalists scrambled to keep up with the story. Some called it a symbol of what African nations can achieve on their own. Others were stunned by how suddenly it appeared, as if the bridge had been unveiled overnight. But everyone agreed, This was a moment Tanzania would never forget. Foreign reporters were stunned. They said massive bridges like this were usually built in other parts of the world, not here, and certainly not in Tanzania's lake region. But that's exactly what made it powerful. It wasn't in the capital. It wasn't in a city known for wealth and development. It was in a place often forgotten. Now suddenly the center of attention. The bridge carries the name of John Pombe, Tanzania's former president. He passed away, but his vision still lives on. Naming this bridge after him was more than a ceremonial gesture. It was a tribute to his legacy, a reminder of his energy, determination, and the controversies that shaped his leadership. For many, it brought back memories of a leader who dreamed big and pushed hard. For others, it was a symbol that leaders may leave, but what they build can outlast them. This was more than a structure of steel and concrete. It was a statement. Naming it after Foley sent a clear message. This wasn't just a one-off project. It was the continuation of unfinished work, now brought to life. At the opening ceremony, President Samia Suluhu Hassan walked across the bridge. She didn't make long speeches or promise miracles. She didn't need to. The bridge itself was the miracle. Her only words were to declare it open for use, and the crowd erupted in genuine, heartfelt cheers. This was real pride, not staged applause. It was the sound of people witnessing their nation achieve something remarkable. But even amid the celebrations, one question hung in the air. Where did the money come from? There were no donor signs, no thank you banners for foreign governments, no outside flags fluttering. That absence spoke volumes. People in Tanzania and across Africa were curious, because if this country had built a $300 million bridge without loans or foreign aid, then this was more than an engineering achievement. It was a direct challenge to the old belief that big African projects must depend on outside funding. Behind the scenes, regional experts were studying not just the construction, but the financing. Building something of this scale without a single borrowed dollar is almost unheard of. For a developing nation, it rewrote the narrative. For decades, the accepted belief was that Africa had to borrow heavily to build anything of significance. This bridge was Tanzania's way of saying no. We can fund our future ourselves. The truth is, Tanzania made a bold choice. They reshaped their budget to make this happen, without waiting for permission from outside. Over several years, quietly and consistently, the government collected funds from within the country. Revenue from gold exports, agriculture, and taxes like VAT, and set them aside in a special development fund. No big announcements, no photo op meetings with donors. Just steady work and disciplined saving until there was enough to make the vision real. Leaked parliamentary documents from 2023 revealed exactly how Tanzania made it happen. For a while, the government cut back on buying expensive imports. They reduced certain subsidies, paused lower priority construction projects, and slowed down the hiring of new government employees. These measures weren't permanent, just long enough to make the bridge the nation's top priority. The logic was simple. Spend the money once, spend it wisely, and own the entire project outright. President Samia Suluhu Hassan hadn't campaigned on this kind of bold economic nationalism, but after succeeding John Magufuli, she recognized the heavy debt burdens faced by many African nations. Instead of asking what Tanzania could afford with foreign help, she asked what the country could change to do more with its own resources. This wasn't just about refusing loans. It was about rejecting the strings that come with them. In most major African infrastructure projects, foreign lenders dictate the timeline, send their own inspectors, bring in outside workers, and steer contracts toward their private companies. Tanzania said no. The Magufuli Bridge was built entirely with local funds, under local rules, by local hands. In that way, the bridge became more than a crossing. It became a quiet shield against dependency. No endless lender meetings, no hidden conditions disguised as advice, no vulnerability to foreign political shifts or currency fluctuations. It was sovereignty, expressed in steel and concrete. For decades, crossing Lake Victoria in Tanzania was a lesson in patience, not convenience. The ferry from Kigongo to Bizisi could take over an hour, factoring in loading times, delays, breakdowns, and the lake's unpredictable moods. On some days, the wait was so long that passengers could nap, eat, and fully charge their phones before even boarding. Now, everything has changed. Cars that once waited for hours make the trip in just 4 minutes. Locals joke it's like teleporting from one side to the other. Many drivers still glance at their watches out of old habit, a small reminder of how time used to control them, and how now they control it. The impact has been immediate and far-reaching. Truck drivers hauling fish, cotton, and grain from the lake region to Dar es Salaam are saving nearly a full day on the road. Routes are straighter, faster, and far more predictable for perishable goods. Those minutes mean the difference between selling fresh or throwing away spoiled stock. For traders, it's the difference between profit and loss. For businesses that depend on timely deliveries, especially in farming and fishing, the bridge has completely reshaped supply chains. One driver transporting Nile perch from Mwanza to markets in Rwanda shared that he no longer needs to re-ice his cargo twice during the journey. That small saving in cost, multiplied by hundreds of trucks each week, translates into a massive boost in efficiency and income. The benefits reach far beyond trade. It's not just goods that are moving faster, it's people. School children who once had to wake at 4 in the morning to catch the ferry can now sleep longer and still arrive on time, ready to learn. Health workers can travel between communities without the constant worry of missing a ferry. Expectant mothers needing urgent medical care are no longer at the mercy of unpredictable water crossings. Now they have a solid, dependable road beneath them. The lake waits for no one, but the bridge is always there. Perhaps the most transformative change is predictability. In this region, life used to be full of surprises, and not the good kind. Trade, travel, even tourism could be disrupted without warning. Now, the bridge delivers something simple but powerful: reliability. And with reliability comes the ability to plan. People can set appointments and keep them. They can think bigger, travel farther, and take risks they couldn't before, because they know exactly when they will arrive. The once separated communities of Kigongo and Bizisi are merging into a single, thriving economic zone. Land values on both sides are rising fast. Restaurants, shops, and roadside stalls are springing up along the approach roads. New transport routes are connecting Tanzania more directly with Uganda, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is no longer just a local project, it's a continental link. Some regional planners now call it Africa's shortest long-distance trade route. In just 4 minutes, the bridge has done more to speed up cross-border commerce than years of negotiations and planning ever could. And the transformation isn't only about trucks and tourists. The bridge is redrawing the invisible map of Tanzania's transport network. Villages once overlooked are becoming logistics hubs, complete with storage facilities and small banks. Places that were quiet backwaters are now buzzing with life, and most importantly, earning income from the steady flow of people and goods. If the bridge is a machine for moving things, its most valuable cargo isn't vehicles or freight. It's opportunity, jobs, hope. That hope is visible in the small but steady changes at both ends of the bridge. At first, it was just a roadside grill near Kigongo selling tilapia and roasted maize to passing drivers. Then came a tire repair shop, then another. Soon there were 5. The dusty ferry port transformed into a hive of activity, driven not by outside investors or top-down planning, but by quick, resourceful action from local Tanzanians. The transformation didn't begin when the bridge opened, it started years earlier. During construction, over 1,500 Tanzanians were hired to work on the project, taking on roles that, in the past, would have gone to foreign workers. They served as land surveyors, welders, structural analysts, and even drone operators capturing aerial views. Yes, Chinese firms were contracted to build the bridge, but this time there were firm conditions. They had to train local workers, share their skills, and leave behind more than just a finished structure. And they did. For the first time, Tanzanian engineers weren't standing on the sidelines. They were leading sections of the work, making critical decisions, doing the calculations, and owning the process. That experience gave them something priceless: confidence. Now, Many of these engineers and technicians are sought after for other major national projects: highways, stadiums, power plants. The Magufuli Bridge didn't just connect to stretches of land. It connected an entire generation to new opportunities. When construction wrapped up and the crews moved on, the momentum didn't slow. It accelerated. With the crossing time cut to just minutes, small traders and service providers quickly set up shop along the new routes. Fresh markets appeared almost overnight, selling everything from fruits and vegetables to phones, clothing, and building supplies. Every hour the bridge operates, it pumps income into communities that were once isolated by distance. Tourism, too, has been transformed. Before, the lake zone was too remote for most travelers. It simply wasn't on the main routes. Now it's an easy stop for anyone visiting the Serengeti, Rubondo Island, or other Lake Victoria destinations. Domestic tourism, often overlooked in planning, is thriving. Weekend trips that once required complicated ferry schedules are now simple. Just fuel up the car and go. Lodges are expanding, guest houses are fully booked, and tour companies are creating packages centered on the bridge itself, offering sunrise drives with breakfast baskets and photo stops by the lake. Even bus routes have shifted to take advantage of the crossing. Freight companies have opened offices in the area. Land prices near the bridge have tripled in just 6 months. The Magufuli Bridge has become an engine, driving growth in every direction. But beyond the jobs, trade, and tourism, the bridge carries something heavier, meaning. It speaks of what Africa can achieve without asking for permission. It honors the vision of past leaders while proving that independence isn't just a political word. It's a way of building. It changes the rules about who gets to dream big, and yet there's an unease in its success. Not because of flaws, but because it quietly exposes how long people have accepted less. The Magufuli Bridge is a challenge, not only to Tanzania's old limitations, but to every African nation still waiting for donor approval before breaking ground on their own dreams. When the dust settled and the economy around the bridge began to surge, something strange happened. The usual applause from powerful global institutions never came. No congratulatory tweet from the IMF. No ribbon-cutting ceremony with the World Bank. Just silence. Because this bridge tells a story those groups don't want told, that Africa can build, fund, and finish its own greatness without them. This is the story of Africa succeeding without anyone's permission, without anyone's supervision. The Magufuli Bridge carries the name of John Pombe Magufuli, a leader many admired and some feared. He believed Africans could build their own future, fund their own ambitions, and speak for themselves. Naming this bridge after him was more than a formality. It was a declaration. It said, "We have not abandoned this vision. We've anchored it into the very land. Its location matters just as much as its name." This isn't in a capital city full of embassies and headlines. It's in Mwanza, in the Lake Zone, a place once considered far from the center of national importance. That choice rewrites the map of development. It shifts influence away from capital cities that look outward for approval and toward regions that leaders have long overlooked. The Magufuli Bridge is development written into the ground, spreading power where it was once denied. But perhaps the most powerful thing it has created is fear, not in Tanzania, but among those who prefer nations like Tanzania to always depend on help. Because if one country can fund and complete a project of this scale with only its own resources, others may start to follow. And if they do, the aid system built on control and conditions could begin to crumble. Already, conversations have begun. Elsewhere, in Zambia, leaders are exploring plans to build without external loans. In Ghana, economists are studying Tanzania's model. In Senegal, students are asking hard questions. If Tanzania can, why not us? The bridge is more than a guide on construction. It's a guide on courage. But courage carries responsibility. Tanzania must now prove that this was not a lucky one-off. They must show that independence can be sustained, that a bridge built by Tanzanians, for Tanzanians, can stand strong for generations, grow the economy, and inspire others to take the same path. It must also be protected from quiet attempts to sell it. From debts disguised as friendly offers, from advisors seeking to reclaim influence. Symbols like this don't just inspire the hopeful, they unsettle the powerful. Still, what now stretches across Lake Victoria is more than a symbol. It is an idea cast in steel, a question aimed at every African nation that has been told what it can't afford, what it must wait for, what it's not ready to do. The Magufuli Bridge doesn't need applause. It doesn't want ceremony. It issues a challenge. What if this isn't the exception? What if this is the new normal? What if Africa's future isn't written on a foreign loan document, but built with a shovel, a plan, and no permission asked? Because if for minutes, on a road can transform so much, what could for years of freedom build? What if Africa stopped asking for approval? What if building alone became normal, not a surprise? Tell us in the comments. What if this bridge isn't just a road, but a warning? For more stories on Black culture, history, and the achievements of African civilizations, subscribe and hit the bell. This is our history and our future.